Alrighty, are you ready for our last speaker of the day? The end of our formal presentations. Next up we've got Brice, who's going to talk about peanuts and minimalism and technical writing. He is a technical writer at Red Hat, also up in Brisbane. He's also hung out and done some work with the Queensland Museum. From what I understand of the Slack channel, he knows a terrifying amount about typesetting, and don't get into an argument with him over English versus French spacing and one or two spaces after the dot. I'm pretty sure he's probably a figment of a small dinosaur called Tunnel. He's a fan of Kermit and of Charlie Brown. Here's Brice.
Thanks. I'd forgotten about some of that stuff. So sorry. Let me figure out what my mouse is. Okay. Hi, my name's Brice. I am a technical writer at Red Hat, and I'm here to talk about peanuts and technical writing in general, focusing on minimalism. So when I talk about minimalism, who imagines they know what I'm talking about? Just raise hands. And when it comes to technical communication, cool. That's good. Hopefully we can shed a bit of light on it. So the reason why I ask is because when I was young and I was really into comic strips, Peanuts, etc., knowing that Peanuts specifically was a minimalist comic strip, but not exactly knowing what that meant, it led me to a couple of years ago when I attended a minimalism workshop by Joanne Hakos, led by Joanne Hakos in Sydney, and I realized that I was wrong. Joanne Hakos is a style guru, content guru, technical writing, all that stuff. Minimalism, she's known for her workshops about minimalism, and minimalism is a style from the 70s is attributed to John Carroll, IBM Watson Research Center, people, etc. The workshop itself was great, learned a lot, lots of workshop-y type stuff like learning how Lego instructions help. But it really came down to 4 points. Choose an action-oriented approach. So that comes down to using procedures. Focus on the user. So frame everything from a user's perspective so that they can put themselves into the documentation. Support error recognition and recovery. So that's helping them through a problem. Comes down to troubleshooting and verification. And support information access, that's findability. So things like table of contents, indexes, ensure titles are the best that they can be, etc. But when it comes down to it, it's ensuring that your content is the best it can be so that the reader goes to the minimal effort to get that job done. There's a lot of words there, it's not very minimal, it's fine. So I went back to Red Hat in Brisbane, wrote the obligatory blog post, and when that was sent around, it led to a bigger conversation about what we can do. And a few people were interested as well. So it came around the same time as a lot of quality initiatives were happening. And so the Minimalism Quality Initiative was born. A group was put together, and it led to something that was deemed crowdsourced minimalism. This was similar to this. It was me standing at the front, a room full of people, a bit of content on a projector, and us going through it bit by bit. And because the Minimalism Quality Initiative was a bit of an around the world thing, it was happening in 3 or 4 different countries around the world. So it was pretty great. And it meant that the technical writers had a hand in molding what this meant to Red Hat. And the end result was this. This is a screen grab from our internal blog posty sort of thing called Mojo. As you can see, it's not exactly the 4 principles that we saw before. There's 5. There's sentences. It's fine. There's lots of words. The blue ones are links that lead to, say, other blog posts or whatever. The point is, it's not as interesting as it can be. So instead, we have the Brice method. This was my incredibly egotistical way to get my name on everyone's desk in the world. I snuck into the office at 7 o'clock in the morning and printed out a bunch and sticky taped them to everyone's monitors. And so instead of giving people a link to go to some internal blog post that is a bunch of words on a bit of paper on the screen, we've got this on people's desks. This was handier for me because I do a lot of editing, there's a lot of peer review that happens. So instead of saying, I think that title can be better, you can just say, hey, that's the C in the Brice method. Instead of saying, I think this needs a verification step, you can be like, maybe the I needs to be worked on. This is just me, by the way. No one else uses it. It's fine. Yeah. And this leads us to essentially today. We have the Brice method cheat sheet that's on everyone's desk. The minimalism, the quality initiative findings in things like the peer review framework, and there's onboarding documentation for new writers. And yeah, there's some training modules are coming out. One's about titles is out there. There's another one about structure, etc. And there's more coming. And that leads me to peanuts. Yeah. Thank you. So as I said, I got into minimalism through Peanuts because it was described as a minimalist comic strip. I was too young to know what that means, but I know that it's because of what it could be compared to at the time. So this is the first ever Peanut strip in 1950. Similar comic strips at the time were more superhero-y, aimed towards action and adventure, lots of background detail, lots of big chunks of words and realistically portrayed characters. Is this going to work? Yeah, you can see the difference. So when we talk about minimalism, we're talking about things like background details that are disappearing, repeated panels, and simple one-sentence things. It's not the same as minimalism in technical communication, but I'm making a point. And the point is to write everything like you're trying to shove it into 4 panels. That's not the best advice. But we can learn a lot from it. It's not about having fewer words, but it's about being succinct. It's not the long sentences. It's not about using long sentences to explain things, but about using the perfect words. And things like using lots of illustrations, you know. Activity probably isn't the right word, but I want everyone to think about something that they write about, or for the technical writers, like a simple procedure. If that's not a technical writer, then another simple thing you do. Things like ride a bike or changing sheets on a bed or something, and think about how many points you would have to use and how many points go into those points, and if it can be condensed in any way. I did this myself. I work at Red Hat. I write for a product called OpenShift, and it prides itself on how simple it is to create an application, a web application, and how you can spin it up from one command. So I did this. I wrote a comic strip with this bean head shaped character that is generic looking. I'll read it out. So you can create a new OpenShift app from your local directory. Just use OC new app in the terminal, then the path to the source code, or put a link to GitHub if you want. Finally, an easy way to make my comic strip creator app. It's not funny, it doesn't have to be. So this is what the bit that I'm talking about, the bit that I used as reference, this is what it looks like in the docs. The point of what I wanted to do was to be able to condense it down into 4 panels. Didn't work as much as I wanted to. It was an attempt. I think the 3rd panel's vague. But if you look at how much is there, it can be condensed down. Is it relevant? Sure. But does it need to be there? Maybe not. Things like the title could be shorter, but it is creating it from the source code, and there's different ways. Yeah, and that actually brings me to the end. So the points I was trying to make is that quality is important. I don't think I have to say that to too many people in the room. I hope that it's evident. But for us, I found that defining that quality and what it meant to us as an organization meant something different, and it was a bit more effective that way. For me, as a way to maintain that quality, I found that something to reference to as a definition or a Brice cheat sheet was the most effective way to maintain that quality, or it has been so far. But above all, be succinct. And that's it. Thank you. Logistics. Did that work? Okay. Thank you.
Machine forever.
Oh no, that's all right. Thanks.
Here endeth the official